welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Got a pretty interesting show for you here today. Hope you stick around for it. Going to talk some Kevin Durant and legacy. But before we get to that, you know what you got to do. If you haven't already and you're here on YouTube, go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell so you're always up to date whenever we drop new content. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, go ahead, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in the Format Podcast, give us a search. We should come up, subscribe right there. If you enjoy the content, go ahead, like it, and make sure you give us that 5-star review. Make sure you share the content with other sports fans you know that might want to hear a different voice and not just the same old, same old. Helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And let's get right to it. All right, Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, as you saw from the thumbnail or the title of the show, depending on where you're watching, I'm asking the question, is his legacy being endangered, right? Is his legacy being affected? And why do I ask that? Kevin Durant is generally regarded as one of the all-time best players, right? One of the best wings, probably a top 25 player of all time. And I'm cool with that. A few years ago, people were talking about moving him into the top 10 and all that. And as you know, if you watch this channel, I'm always leery about moving guys into the top 10 because the question then becomes, who do you move out? And okay, that takes a lot more thought than just saying, well, so-and-so is a top 10 player now, right? Like last year when the Warriors won the championship, and I was discussing the same thing about Steph Curry. If you want to move him into the top 10, you have to think about who you're going to take out. And that makes the proposition much more difficult. Okay, cool. So my question today is Kevin Durant's legacy taking a hit? And why would I be asking that? As I mentioned, he's an all-time great player, probably a top 25 guy, an all-time elite scorer. Okay, he's got all that. He's got a tremendous toolkit. He's got a handle. He can shoot the ball. He can rebound the ball. He can defend the ball. He really doesn't have too much weakness other than like physical weakness. He's not a particularly strong player, and he can be impacted by physicality, but we'll get to that. So why am I asking if his legacy is taking a hit? Kevin Durant is a former MVP. He won a Most Valuable Player award when he was in Oklahoma City. And him and Russell Westbrook were together, and that seems like ages ago, right? Was that 2015? He was 2015, 2016 season. He was with OKC. That was his last season there. Now, they were playing against the Golden State Warriors. Quick recap, right? They were playing against Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, I believe. And they were up 3-1, and they ended up choking away that lead. The Warriors came back and beat them. Now, Kevin Durant, that following summer after the Warriors lost in the NBA Finals to the LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavs after blowing their own 3-1 lead, right? With some help from the NBA, but different story on that, right? But anyway, Kevin Durant decides he's going to, after being recruited, decides he's going to go and play with the Warriors. Now, a lot of people, myself included, thought that was, how do I say this? Competitively cowardly. Right? As in, you're going to a stacked situation to avoid competition. Now, especially the LeBron James fans were highly upset about this, which I think is absolutely asinine, totally ridiculous, because how can they be upset that Kevin Durant did something that their guy started, but he just did it better? And so he ends up winning the next 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs, fits in perfectly, dominates, including, you know, giving LeBron James the business 2 years in a row in the finals, right? But the LeBron fans aren't happy about that. Many people in the NBA media weren't happy about it because it just basically, you know, destroyed competition in the league for a few years. I didn't agree with that. You know, I thought that, number one, again, you know, you going to a situation like that that's just so ready-made to win, I didn't agree with it. And then also, of course, the fact that you went to the team that just finished beating you. Like, I understand it's a different era and a different mentality, but I got to keep pushing it back to the era that I came from and the era that I know. And, you know, you hear all these older guys talking about they never would have done that, right? Okay, cool. And I know some of you are sitting here saying, well, Bruce, Charles Barkley went to Houston and he teamed up with Scottie Pippen and Hakeem Olajuwon, right? Number one, Scottie Pippen was traded to Houston. And number two, Charles Barkley was traded to Houston as well and didn't even know it was coming. He didn't ask to go to Houston. He got traded there by the Suns, who were basically starting a rebuild. So, you know, let's get the history right on that, right? So Charles Barkley didn't, you know, necessarily team hop and try to jump onto a super team to win. He got traded there. Anyway, So KD goes and he wins those championships, and you would think that would make him happy, right? Because most of the elite competitors, what do they play for? They play to win, right? Hello, Herm. You play to win the game. So anyway, he goes there, he wins two championships, I should say, two finals MVP, is widely regarded as the best player on the team, and many people regard him as the best player in the game of basketball by that point, right? But he's not happy. After his third year there, he decides that he doesn't like the fact that he's not getting the credit that he deserves for the role that he played. And the fact is, Steph Curry is homegrown. Klay Thompson is homegrown. Draymond Green, all these guys are homegrown in terms of the Warriors organization, drafted there, played their entire careers there thus far, and, built the team, did the winning there, right? KD comes in basically as a mercenary, a nuclear missile, gets busy, wins 2 chips, and he decides, well, he's never going to get the love that Steph Curry gets from the Warriors fans and from the NBA media. He doesn't like that. He wants to strike out, do his own thing. So he ends up going across country, hooking up with Kyrie Irving, Brooklyn Nets. You know how that goes. A whole bunch of stuff happens. He has some incredible, history making type performances, but can't get the championship on his own that he seeks. Kyrie Irving ends up moving on, getting traded to the Dallas Mavericks after a whole bunch of stuff with him. And I did a show on that a while back. You can check the channel for the Kyrie Irving show. But anyway, after that, Kevin Durant basically says, hey, I want out, gets traded to Phoenix. Okay, that's another situation that's pretty much ready-made, right? And it's a very good situation with an opportunity to win. He says he wants to go there. He wants to help Chris Paul win a championship. Okay, cool. Now, you got Kevin Durant. You got Chris Paul, you have Devin Booker. You have a really, really good big three. Not much else in terms of future draft picks, not much else in terms of depth off the bench. So he goes there. He's already coming off injuries that he sustained in Brooklyn, and he gets hurt again, right? Kevin Durant gets hurt, slips in the layup line. He's hurt. He's out for a bit. So I'm bringing up these injuries because that means he basically didn't have a lot of time and opportunity to really connect with his teammates on the floor in terms of how they play and how they play together. Now, that's not a terrible thing in this case because Kevin Durant is arguably the most plug-and-play superstar in the NBA today and maybe the most plug-and-play superstar in the history of the league. His game is such that he can go anywhere and fit in, and we saw that with the Warriors, right? So anyway, he ends up in Phoenix, and we know what happens. He's having a tremendous season, averaging 29 a game, 50-40-90 this season, 56% from the field, which is absolutely ludicrous for a jump shooter. Tremendous efficiency, 40% from 3 and 91%, I believe, from the free throw line. So he's absolutely going bonkers. And he's the guy that doesn't even, for the most part, have that give me the rock, let me take over mentality. He just kind of fits in. But again, he's so incredibly efficient that him fitting in means he can get you 30 points on 12 or 13 shots. Like, that's how good he is. So, but we see now Chris Paul gets hurt in the second round of the playoffs and he's unable to go on. And that's a whole different story. But quick side note, man, is Chris Paul cursed? Like, is there a voodoo doctor somewhere that's like drawing pictures and folding the legs so that he keeps getting injured? I don't know. And that reference, if you haven't seen, is from Tales from the Hood, the monster. And the kid would draw pictures of the monster and then he would fold it up and it would hurt the monster. Anyway, so Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, he keeps getting injured at the wrong times pretty much throughout his career. There's always something that seems to stop Chris Paul in his tracks when he's in position to have the success he so badly desires. He may be one of those guys that goes down as one of the greatest ever to retire without a championship. At this point, I think that title is still between Karl Malone and Charles Barkley. Take your pick. But Chris Paul is going to be right up there when it's all said and done. One of the greatest players to ever play and not win a title. But yeah, so Chris Paul, he goes down and misses, I want to say, games 2 through 6 in the Phoenix series. He can't play. Devin Booker is going absolutely nuclear in the playoffs. And Kevin Durant, even though he's continuing to average 29, here's the thing. I think teams are now seeing, especially in the playoffs, and watching the film of what the Celtics did to KD last season in the playoffs. And what do I mean by that? I mean, for years I've been saying Kevin Durant is an extremely skilled player, but he's not physically gifted. And if you get physical with him, you can make it much more difficult for him to have success. Now, Kevin Durant averaged 50. He was 56% from the field in the regular season this past season, right? During the playoffs, that dropped to 45%. Why is this happening? Because teams are getting more physical with him. They're defending him in a more quality way. And I've talked for years about the fact that modern NBA defense is so far inferior to the defense in the 90s, right? And in the early 2000s. And that's by design. The league has made it that way. They've changed the rules, blah, blah, blah. But in the last couple of seasons, I got to be fair. I've been seeing the league, it's allowing more physicality in the playoffs, and it's allowing guys to really strap down and defend. And I like that. You're seeing a little more of what you've seen in the past. And you're also seeing some of the players that we thought were so elite and so unguardable. Well, when you put some defense on them, things changes up, right? When you start bumping them around and putting some physicality, it's not quite as easy as we thought, right? So anyway, Kevin Durant, he's out again, and it comes back around to now. Of course, context always has to play a role, right? Their point guard, who is one of their key decision makers and distributors and initiators of offense, Chris Paul, he got hurt, right? To get Kevin Durant, a lot of their bench depth got traded away. Kevin Durant and Devin Booker both played a whole ton of minutes this postseason. Kevin Durant, I think, averaged like 40, almost 42 minutes a game this postseason, which is a tremendous amount, especially with all the injuries that he had this season and just in the modern NBA on the whole. Most teams don't play their stars that many minutes. So he was taking a lot. He's playing a lot of minutes. There's a lack of depth on these teams, and teams are getting physical with him. So the question now becomes, is his legacy taking a hit? Why? Because he couldn't win in Golden State. Right? I'm sorry, he couldn't win in Oklahoma City. So he goes to Golden State, where he wins in a very easy situation that was set up for maximum success. Okay, cool. He decides he wants to leave there. He goes to Brooklyn. He can't win there. Again, a lot of context, but hey, you're supposed to be the guy. A lot of people had you as best player in the world. Some people had you as a top 10 player all time. You can't make that happen. You couldn't win there. And now you ask for the trade once your guy Kyrie is gone, and you get traded to Phoenix, another situation with two other guys, another elite scorer and an all-time point guard. Can't win there either. At what point are we going to really start asking the question, like, what is KD's true legacy, right? So far, the only way he's been able to have success was to be that mercenary, that nuclear missile pointed from a team that was already basically a superpower. So I guess my question for you is, and I'd love to hear this in the comment section, has Kevin Durant's legacy taken a hit? What do you think it would take for him to get back on track? And, do you think it's going to happen? Do you think he wins another championship before he retires? Okay, definitely can't wait to hear your comments in the comments section. I'm going to go ahead and stop it here. Can't wait to see you next time, and I'm out. Peace.